Imagine standing outside. The sun is brutal, the air is thick, every breath feels like swallowing heat. Now imagine that, with no shelter, no water bottle, no way to call for help. That was your ancestors' reality. Not for a day, not for a season, for thousands of years. And somehow they made it through. Here is what no one tells you about human survival. It was never about being the strongest, it was never about being the fastest. The creatures that looked like you, your direct ancestors, were not the biggest animals on the ancient plains. They were not the most armored. They were not the most dangerous by tooth or claw. And yet, when the planet's temperature climbed to levels that drove countless species into extinction, the human line survived. More than survived. It adapted. It evolved. It became something almost impossibly resilient. The question is, how? To understand what your ancestors faced, you have to go back. Not to ancient Rome, not to the Bronze Age. Further, much further. Approximately 125,000 years ago, the Earth entered a period scientists call the last interglacial, a warm phase between ice ages when global temperatures were 1 to 2 degrees Celsius higher than today. That does not sound like much, but in climate terms, it was catastrophic. Sea levels rose, coastlines shifted. The African continent, where your ancestors were living, swung between roasting drought and sudden flood. The Sahara, which we think of as desert today, was sometimes green and sometimes an impassable sea of lethal heat. Paleoclimatologist Jessica Tierney at the University of Arizona has spent years reconstructing what ancient African climates actually looked like during these thermal spikes. Her team's work shows that temperatures in parts of East Africa during warm pulses could exceed what modern humans experience today by several degrees. And that rainfall patterns were radically unpredictable. A landscape that supported life for a generation could turn to cracked earth within decades. Your ancestors were living inside this chaos, and the first thing they had to solve was heat itself. Here is where something remarkable enters the picture. The human body sweats. You already know this, but you probably do not know how genuinely extraordinary that ability is among large mammals. Most animals cool down by panting, expelling heat through their breath and mouth. Your ancestors had a different system. Roughly 2 to 3 million years ago, the human lineage began shedding body hair and dramatically increasing the number of eccrine sweat glands, the glands responsible for producing liquid sweat across the entire skin surface. Anthropologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard University has studied the biomechanics of the human body in relation to heat and endurance for decades. His research points to something he calls the persistence predator hypothesis. Ancient humans, he argues, did not win their food by outrunning prey in short bursts. They won by running prey to exhaustion over long distances in the heat of midday, when their four-legged competitors were forced to stop and pant. Your ancestors, drenched in sweat, kept moving. Think about that. Your body's ability to sweat was not just a comfort mechanism, it was a weapon. But surviving the warm age was not purely biological. It required something the planet had never seen before in quite this form. It required the mind. Around 70,000 to 100,000 years ago, a period researchers sometimes call the Middle Stone Age Revolution, something shifted in the archaeological record. The tools your ancestors left behind became more sophisticated. Evidence of symbolic thinking emerged. Ochre pigments, shell beads, abstract engravings. And perhaps most critically, evidence of long-distance trade networks began to appear. Obsidian from volcanic regions turning up hundreds of kilometers from its source. Marine shells found far inland. Your ancestors were not just surviving as isolated family groups scrambling for food. They were building networks, sharing knowledge, passing information about water sources, migration routes, and seasonal food availability across distances that would have seemed impossible. Researcher Curtis Morayan at Arizona State University has argued that coastal environments played a crucial role in this survival story. His excavations at Pinnacle Point in South Africa have revealed evidence of early humans exploiting marine resources, shellfish, fish, aquatic plants, during periods when inland environments became too harsh to sustain life. The coastline, he argues, became a refuge, a safety valve for a species under thermal pressure. When the interior burned, your ancestors moved toward water. But here is the counterintuitive twist. The heat, the very thing that threatened to destroy the human population, may have been exactly what made you who you are today. Population geneticists studying ancient DNA have found evidence of a genetic bottleneck in human history, a period roughly 70,000 to 100,000 years ago, when the global human population may have dropped to as few as 10,000 breeding individuals. Some researchers estimate the number could have been even lower. A few thousand people, the entire future of your species, balanced on the edge of extinction. But survival is selective. The individuals who made it through possessed something. Whether it was slightly more efficient sweat glands, slightly better capacity for social cooperation, slightly more flexible thinking about where and how to find food, or some combination of all three, the harsh filter of a warming world pressed against your lineage and carved out only the most adaptable. You are not descended from the average ancient human. You are descended from the survivors. And those survivors carried something inside them that no tool, no physical adaptation could fully replace: the ability to change behavior. When the environment shifted, they shifted. When one strategy stopped working, they found another. This behavioral flexibility, the capacity to innovate under pressure, is what evolutionary biologist Joseph Henrich at Harvard calls cumulative culture. The ability to build on the knowledge of others rather than starting from scratch each generation. Other animals learn, but humans accumulated knowledge across generations, passing it forward through language, imitation, and social bonds. When one elder in a group knew where a hidden water source was, the whole group survived. When one innovator discovered that a particular root was edible during drought, the knowledge spread. The heat of the ancient world forced your ancestors into tighter, more interdependent social units, and that togetherness accelerated the very cognitive evolution that defines what it means to be human. The Warm Age did not just test your ancestors, it trained them. Now bring this forward to today. Because this story is not just history, it is inside you right now. Every time your body starts sweating on a hot day, that is a 2 million-year-old survival system activating, one that was refined in the crucible of an ancient warm age. Every time you reach out to someone else to solve a problem you could not solve alone, you are running the same cooperative algorithm that kept a dwindling population of humans alive when the planet tried to kill them. Every time you adapt, change your plan, shift your approach, find a new route, you are expressing the single greatest trait your ancestors passed down to you. Not strength, not speed, adaptability. The heat age nearly ended the human story. Instead, it wrote the most important chapter of it. And the next time the world feels like it is trying to break you, remember, your ancestors stood under a sun hotter than anything you have ever felt, with no shelter, no technology, no certainty, and they kept moving anyway. So can you. And maybe that is the most important thing the ancient heat ever burned into the human line. Not just the ability to survive impossible conditions, but the quiet certainty, carried forward in your blood across 100,000 years, that you already have everything you need to get through. Just like the day you entered a scorching world with no shelter, no water bottle, no way to call for help, and somehow made it through.